Hey, you are listening to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm one of three co-hosts, Mark.
And I'm the third is Billy.
He's just kind of been adopted at this point.
Yeah. And I am Croissant Guy, the last one.
What? Croissant guy.
Mark,
Oh,
did you
never mind.
and we are talking about Destroy All Neighbors, the latest release from Shudder. Billy, since you're kind of the co-host rotation, what's this movie about?
This movie is about a guy that kind of loses his mind. he he's trying to write this symphony music deal, and he's fighting with his neighbor, but you don't know if it's mentally there or if it's only in his head, and it goes down a rabbit hole from there.
That sums it up pretty well. All right, guys. Real talk? What did you guys think about this movie?
It was horrible. It hurt me
I
to
mean,
watch.
Didn't even miss a flinch. It was horrible.
I mean, I saw different other movies from like growing up. One of them was like Idle Hand kind of thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was what was it? Scott Pilgrim in one of the scenes where he's fighting Vlad in the music part, where just
Yeah.
a blink, just it's a tidbit there, but it kind of reminded me of Scott Pilgrim, and but the Idle Hand did the whole thing. Just that's what I compared it to in my head.
Yeah, the characters kind of annoyed me the whole movie. All of them.
I thought you were Vlad.
Why would I be Vlad?
I don't know. You said you were getting annoyed, so he was the annoying one.
They were all annoying.
All right. So before I share my thoughts, Mark, I gotta ask, do you like prog rock?
I don't actually. Do you know some prog bands?
It's not off the top of my head, but I can look up some and then while I share my thoughts.
Man.
Yeah, because I was like, well, maybe there are things that about the things that happen in this movie that happen that don't go anywhere, or things that contradict one another. There were so many moments in this movie where I wanted to like this movie so much, and there are things about this movie that I genuinely love and things that I genuinely hate. I am very neutral in this movie. So,
Okay. So there are, according to a quick search, there are some that I know of that I like. Like obviously Tool. I've always liked Tool forever. They're awesome. Then you got Dream Theater and Symphony X and some others that are listed. So some of it's kind of hit or miss. It depends who they are.
because did you guys get the sense that like Prague was like hated in this universe in like some scenes, and then like it was celebrated in another scene? 'Cause it felt like they kind of kept going back and forth with like where they stood in like the whole like Prague universe.
Well, they they were kind of talking like progressive metal is the people that listen to it are pretentious, like the people that like art house movies or the people that like Skinamarink. They're just
Still can't let
pretentious
that one go,
people.
can you?
No, no, I refuse to because so many people have that on their list of great movies of last year. It's like, why? What drugs were you on to have enjoyed
It's
that?
been 2 years since you saw that at Fantasia Fest. Let it
It
go,
was
Mark.
listed as one of the best horror movies of 2023.
Let it go. Let it go.
No, fuck those guys. No. But but that's kind of the way they treat the category of prog metal. in kind of that same light, the way he gets to talking about it, the bass player that he's watching the videos from, and things like that.
Augie.
Yeah.
You mean Roadface?
Yeah. That's what we haven't gotten into spoilers yet. So,
Okay.
all right. So if you guys had to rate this, and then we'll get into spoilers and everything. I don't know how long this episode's going to be. So,
Yeah.
I don't
Mark,
imagine it would be very long.
what? There's it's a deep movie, my guy. You know, we got to dissect Prague and the differences between subgenres of rock music.
Now you're going
Mark,
to be pretentious, aren't you?
what do you give this movie?
Maybe a 1 out of 5,
Wow, you really did hate this movie.
mainly for the violence. There was some nice bloody violence.
All
Other
right.
than that, it was painful.
All right. How about you, Billy?
I'd say a 2.5 and 3, but I looked at more of a comedy than a horror or anything else to me.
Well, it was a comedy horror.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. They leaned more into the comedy to me than they did the horror.
Are we really calling it comedy?
That would be better than calling it horror. It's
Yeah,
better than horror.
I'm with Billy at a 2.5. I think this movie has things going for it, but then it's ruined by other narrative choices it makes. So there is that. But if you guys have seen Destroy All Humans, what did you guys think? Comment below.
Destroy All
Let us
Neighbors.
Destroy All Neighbors. Like, I don't know why Destroy All Humans keeps
I
coming
mean,
on my
Destroy
radar.
All Humans was a cool video game where you got to
Yes,
play as a
yes.
alien, and yeah.
So let us know what you guys think about Destroy All Neighbors. In the show notes below, we'll be right back to talk about spoilers.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
All right, welcome back to Abyss Gazing. We're jumping into the spoilers of Destroy All Neighbors.
You got it right.
I did. Third time's the charm. I want to say, Mark, you can say whatever you want to say about it. They did Alex Winters justice in the practical effects, transforming him into Vlad. That is probably the best thing the movie has going for it.
I mean, it had some cool effects, I'll give it that. It had some decent makeup and traditional effects. Outside of that, it was dumb. And I think I lost IQ points watching that movie.
I think it probably would have been a lot better if you were high.
Well, I thought by like the opening sequence where they have like the light show and kind of like the neon colors, it made you feel like you were going into like the colon or like somewhere inside the human body or like an alien, and it never got there again. But I think the thing that like I'm hung up on was like the whole storyline with like Will and Emily, like what like the whole printer paper thing like was one of them. Like
That
that never
he was too busy tied up in his own things to pay attention to what she needed, even though they were simple things.
it never had payoff, and it like it really bothered me. It's such a simple thing, but like Vlad felt like really one dimensional where he was just like a musclehead that like listened to EDM music at like 3 in the morning and just lifted up. And I don't know, like do you guys think he was real? Was he not? Like 'cause I didn't think about it until Billy said something.
I mean, I'm starting to think a lot of it was in his head. I mean, and the biggest reason why I say that is because in the scene when they were in doing the actual recording and everything, at the end, all the people that were there disappeared except him.
Except for the fact that he had what, 4 or 5 life sentences,
Yeah,
which
Right.
comes
30
with
life
more than
sentences.
comes with more than just like holding hostages.
Well, at one point they said they couldn't find the bodies, so
There were pigs involved.
yes, there were.
Pigs can eat through a human body in 6 minutes.
How do you know
according-
that? And why do you know that?
Snatch. That's a scene in Snatch. They discuss that.
Good to know.
They talk about never trust a person with a pig farm.
It's fair. uh
And you remove the teeth because they can't digest them.
yeah. Like I don't
Have you never seen Snatch?
it's been a while.
If it
It's
was
been
a
a while,
horror
Mark.
movie, we'd have to cover it.
It's always Patreon. Patreon.com/victims and villains. Uh yeah, I don't really know like what to talk about this. Like in terms of like mental health, there are a couple of themes obviously with Will's like story arc throughout the course of this of like, constantly like that pursuit of like perfect and like how it really hinders the relationships with the people around you. How nothing ever kind of just really seemed to be like good enough for him, whether it was his job or the album that he spent 3 years refining. And I think there's only, as a former musician, I feel like there's only so much that you can do to refine something before there's any evolution that goes into it.
You also have where it portrayed him kind of being crazy and everything getting to him, like you just said, and the stress and the anxiety, and he finally cracked. And I mean, that's what I perceived out of some of the scenes.
Well, it kind of reminded me a little bit of was it Paul Dude's Deadly Day Off or whatever it was called?
Yeah.
And the fact that everything kind of happens by accident.
It was an accident.
Yeah, he didn't kill Vlad. It was kind of an accident caused by Vlad. He didn't kill the old lady. He just showed her how to rig it, and she ended up frying herself. Augie
Yeah.
jumped out behind him
Yeah.
as he was backing up. So he really didn't. Everything was an accident. He was just not quite the victim, but he was wrong place, wrong time kind of thing.
And I think that kind of go ahead, Billy.
I was going to say the guy he should have killed was Caleb Bang Jensen.
You gotta say all three names.
All three names. Caleb Bang Jensen. After he drew a dick in his head and got him fired.
Well, because he was a dickhead.
Well, I mean, what was the other guy's name in there? Scott? Is that what it was? That guy was just like a tool to me, because he's like, oh, this is good and everything, and that sounds pretty good. And then Caleb and whatever his name, Caleb Bang Jensen comes in and says, this shit sucks. And you shouldn't play this in here. And he's like, yeah, cut that off. You can't play that. Dude, you a follower. Shut the hell up.
Wasn't the producer the guy from Reno 911?
Yes, he was.
Indeed, Thomas Lennon, a guy shows up in like just a bunch of random things that makes him like a great character actor. People will always know him from Reno 911, but he just randomly shows up in things like Rob
I mean,
Riggle or other character actors.
he was the main character in the Puppet Master Littlest Right.
I haven't seen that, so not a
It
big
was
Puppet
pretty,
Master fan.
it was pretty good. It was fun.
But going back to what you were saying, Mark, about just kind of being in the wrong place, the wrong time. I love some of the for as much issues I have with this film, there are so many like good like quotes that are either funny, like the Caleb Bang Jensen thing, or like even like some of the more like insightful things here are like, when he's like in the bathtub and he's like dismembering Vlad, and you kind of have this picture into the ability to uh, kind of like see him separate. Then he has that like first like moment where like Vlad is like decapitated and like communicating with him, and he
Well,
says I now live in your head rent free, which I think is like speaks volumes for as much as the film is playing it for comedy. It speaks volumes for how the mistakes that we make have, the reality of like living with mistakes and regrets and depression, or things that other people say, or the way that we perceive ourselves, and on and on and on.
I mean, that whole scene that you're talking about, I have a hard time if I'm not getting into a movie, starting to pick it apart. And my first thought was, why didn't he just get a butcher knife? It would have been much cleaner.
See, this is why I'm the analytical one.
Man, you're trying to turn him into Dahmer over there with the saw or something. So, no, that line is the reason why I said, was he really there? Because I live in your head rent free. Even if he was real before, that line kind of led me to believe that everything was in his head at that point.
All the people coming back to life to help him
Yeah,
were in his head,
exactly.
but he killed them. And apparently he was convicted of killing
Yeah.
them.
But he still won the awards and everything. So,
I mean, Vince Neil killed a guy and he only did like a year or something.
didn't
Yeah,
he get like 3 life sentences? They were trying to get him down to one, and because it was
He got
ridiculous.
He got off on manslaughter charges with like a slap on the wrist because it was Vince Neil of Motley
yeah,
Crue. Where was it? Varg from Mayhem and Berzoom. He spent like 30 years in prison or something for killing people.
yeah.
Then you've got, what was it, the singer or bass player or something from Death who's like spent life in prison. So yeah, that was completely irrelevant, but
Yeah.
So you brought up special effects earlier, Mark. Was it just me, or did it look like they just put a piece of steak on top of Augie's face, like just sitting right there, like a big porterhouse or something, and made it look like roadkill and just sat it on his face?
yeah,
A little
some
bit.
of the effects didn't quite make any sense, but they
But
were still
I mean,
kind of awesome.
that's what it looked to me. I was like, but that was the campy, cheesy kind of effect. It's like, okay, I'll let them get away with it. But if it was any other kind of movie that I thought would have been more serious, yeah, that was off to me. It got me right away.
I think
It fit the style of cheese that they went for with the movie.
it
Right.
did, but I think this movie, like in retrospect, could have been a 15, maybe 20 minutes short.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think,
already a short movie.
yeah, it's under 90 minutes, and I still felt like there were so many portions of this movie that really lagged. and so many portions of this movie were like scenes like didn't need to be put in, or like, it didn't help with anything. Like if you took out characters like Emily or Alec or
Well,
some of the more colorful characters in the apartment, and you just made it like he rents from, Eleanor, and happens to like, live next door to Vlad. Like this movie could have been condensed to like a literally 15-20 minutes short, and I think it would have been just as good, if not better.
yeah, but like the girlfriend, what was the movie the other week that the one character was there, just nothing more as a plot point? The girlfriend was there to stall the police. That was her whole purpose in the whole movie, essentially.
She was. Yes, you are absolutely right. And um
Plot point characters like that can be a little bit annoying, and there were a lot of them in this movie.
I think that like what it is for me, and like I think maybe it hits for both of you guys as well. When it comes to camp, there has to be a full on commitment, a
Right.
true conviction for you to go 175%. And this movie kind of feels like it tries to accelerate up to like the camp, and then gets like too intimidated, and then kind of like backs down a little bit, and then tries to get back up, and never quite lands there, like
It it felt
on
more
the
like
camp
they
level.
didn't quite understand how to do what they wanted.
Yes.
That's more what it felt like they didn't quite have the know-how or ability and didn't consult the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with some of the story thing that they either could have expanded a little bit more on it to make it more into it and take out some of the other characters, or shorten it. Because yeah, after a while, I
It
dozed off
seemed
the second time I watched it.
it seemed like it was dragging the
Yeah,
whole time.
It did. And there are two, like, as we've picked this movie apart, there are two mental health points I want to pick, and we can call it a day. Uh
Perfectionism can drive you insane.
so that one, and specifically, is when the uh Emily is like actually packing up to all of her stuff to leave. And during the fight, she actually says, "You're constantly surrounded by problems, but the only constant is you." And it's this moment where it's not quite his aha moment, but it's this moment where you're realizing that there is this is a pattern for Will, that he is constantly looking for an escape, whether it is the stereo that has to be really nice, or the cables from Japan, or the album. And escapism is fine, but it has the potential to be dangerous for your mental health if it is literally all you can all you do, and consumes your absolute life in the same way that what we see here. I think Will's arc throughout the course of this is a very cautionary tale, because it uh very much is that entire escapism, so much so to the point where like he's doing imaginary murders and traveling the world with corpses.
so I want to add to the Emily thing though, where she was leaving. That can be a trigger right there. That can cause mental health breakdown, anxiety. That can cause many things. I can tell you from experience. So that right there is part of mental health too. If you realize that you're being triggered, or uh, you go into a depression, that's when you really need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I don't have much on this one right now.
And I also like want to say, like, I think, Mark has his painting. Billy, I don't know what you do in your spare time. I
Video games.
watch video games. I watch
I
I will
watch
write
movies.
I will write poetry on occasion, but like, I think there is something very cathartic and very therapeutic about finding an artistic outlet that you can do, and that happens to be Will, but it also has to be placed on this idea of it's okay to put boundaries on yourself and not let it consume everything that you do.
Well, he took it to an obsessive level.
Yeah.
It might have been better as a Christopher Nolan movie because he deals with obsession real good.
These are the things not to do with your mental health. Is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, definitely have an outlet. That's the biggest thing. You got to have an outlet so that you can take yourself out of the situation or out of that mind space.
Yeah, and the last thing that I want to talk about is a line that Eleanor gives him during the pep talk right before they get ready to do the big recording, the climax, and she says, "Use your demons. Don't let your demons use you." And going back to the conversation of art and boundaries, and but also being a mental health benefit, allowing your art to fuel, allowing your demons essentially to fuel your mental health activities and what you do. I think art can be a really good outlet for things like that you're struggling with, and whether that's putting them on paper, putting them in song, or putting them in poetry or art or painting or comics, whatever. At the end of the day, like, don't be consumed by the things that break your mental health. Understand that there are boundaries, set up spots for yourself to really pursue healthy mental health living and practices.
You shouldn't go on a rampage.
No.
Well,
Mark.
I do want to leave on a lighter note though. Whenever they're in the kitchen at the beginning and she's like, "You could turn my knobs." He's like, "But you said they were too sensitive." So I just busted out laughing on that line. I couldn't help it. It was just hilarious.
I think that might be the only time I laughed during this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of shook my head at the producer dude because everything he was saying that's not what rock and roll is about. It's like exactly everything you hear about rock and roll and what it's about.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So this is a more low-key episode, but we still had some fun with it. You guys can stream Destroy All Neighbors now on Shudder. But Billy, where can people find you living on the internet nowadays?
Nowadays, I am on Facebook at WTaver3, and I also have, I guess you could do TikTok, which is VA Boy 99.
All right,
VA Boy.
Mark. Mark, when are you gonna come on to TikTok?
TikToks.
Well, see, I started doing that as an outlet, to be honest with you.
There we go.
So I want to get it up. To be honest, I want to get it up to where I could stream and watch movies and talk live on there while I'm watching.
The TikToks.
See,
hey, that's where it's at sometimes.
You kids.
That is
TikToks.
That is where it's at. Don't go yell at a cloud elsewhere, Mark.
I'm happy to tell people to get off my lawn. I've been looking forward to that for a long time.
Right now, you don't have any. It's white.
Yeah.
True.
Anyways, Mark, where can people find you online?
I've got my painting stuff that hasn't been updated in a while. Titanium Juggernaut painting on Instagram and hanging out babbling with you.
Yeah. So you guys can find Abyss Gazing wherever you guys get your podcasts from. But if you want to follow my cinema journey, you guys can follow me on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. And you guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, as well as TikTok. Mark. So we will be back next week with our special panel of vendors from this year's horrific Hope spinoff event, Winter Horror Land. Will be joined next week by Love Always KB, Moonstone Menagerie, and Twitchcraft Studios, talking about the Blair Witch Project. So until next time, remember, the longer you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victimsandvillains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victimsandvillains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.